Welcome to the Michael Glum Show, where we talk about things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex. We talk about politics. We talk spirituality and substance abuse. Join us by calling 800-699-0980. Think, speak, and be heard. Here now is Michael Glum.
Hey folks, how you doing? Michael Glum Show. Just been working on a couple of things here in the studio, and we have a good show, set up for you, and we'll get involved with that in a moment. I do want to go ahead and just get through some of the paperwork, as you know they call it, because nothing's ever really done until the paperwork's done. So anyway, you can listen to our show. Our show broadcasts live every Tuesday evening, and that's from 8 o'clock till about 10 o'clock. Depending on the guests and the calls and everything that goes on. We do have a call-in number for you. That number is 800-699-0980. That's 800-699-0980. We do have a guest that's going to be joining us momentarily, and the topic for tonight is going to be dreams. Not the DACA type of dreamers, but dreams. But I'll probably kid Lane Dalphin, who's going to be our guest, about that when we get her on the air with us. I'm going to make some adjustments. You know, whenever you update software, I really should go ahead and make sure everything works. I just spent like a half an hour trying to get audio back in here and working. It was a simple solution. I don't know why. Some parameter changed as I was doing this. And anyway, we're back in the throes of things today. Anyway, as you know, we always talk about the weekly apocalypse that's going to overcome the United States and destroy it because Trump happens to be the president. We went very quickly last week. I mean, wow. Omarosa. We went from Omarosa then to taking away Brenner's clearance. The commie shouldn't have had a clearance to begin with. Really shouldn't. He really shouldn't. And I'm going to play a video just because for a couple of reasons. One is because I want to check the system out. And the other is because this is a very good video, and it's with Sean Hannity and Mark Levin, and they do things that I just couldn't do. As much as I'm involved with politics, I am not a constitutional attorney, nor was I the chief of staff for presidents, as Mark Levin was. But I think this is very interesting.
All right, predictably, after Sarah Sanders announced that John Brennan's security clearance had been revoked, of course, the destroy Trump mainstream liberal media, of course, extension of the Democratic Party had a complete meltdown. Let's take a look.
This is without precedent in modern American history. I mean, security clearances have never been used to punish people for speaking out.
This is nothing short of extraordinary, and we should all be scared about the state of our democracy. The president sent his White House press secretary out there today to basically poop on the people from the press secretary podium and not only threaten, like they didn't just make a threat, it was a promise. They're snatching John Brennan's national security clearance.
We begin tonight with a chilling action taken by the President of the United States that looks something like something you might see out of a dictatorship or authoritarian regime.
Trump is under fire for Nixonian enemies list tactics. Those are the accusations of at least one former FBI official, and the White House is publicly admitting that it is retaliating against former CIA Director John Brennan.
Joining us now is the host of Sierra TV's Levin TV, the host of Life, Liberty, Levin, Sunday night, right here on the Fox News Channel, #1 in the slot. I call him the great one, Mark Levin. Mark, we have never had a former communist who literally we now know spread Russian lies to disinform, propagandize the American people to impact the presidential election either. These are unprecedented times.
See if we can unravel this from the fabulously stupid Omarosa media. First of all, apparently the fact that Brennan voted for a Stalinist who was funded by the Soviets, the Communist Party USA, was very attractive for Barack Obama, who made him CIA director. Think about that. So how did this man ever get a security clearance? I'm curious about this. Now, a couple of things. The president is looking at Brennan. He revokes his security clearance. Professor Dershowitz needs to know that's a privilege. That's not a right of security privilege. The fact of the matter is nobody's stopping Brennan from speaking. In fact, nobody could stop. He has a big mouth. He will never shut up. He'll go on TV and be the kook that he is. The idea that he has a right to access to information because he served in the Obama administration at the CIA is a preposterous argument, but of course the ACLU will take up the case because they take up a lot of stupid cases. That's number one. Number two, who else is the president looking at? Comey. And people who are keeping score, Comey is a Republican. How many times have the media told us, Mueller's a Republican, Comey's a Republican, and even they question the president. Okay, you got a Republican. And by the way, for the media, most of these people the president are looking at are white. I know that's very important to you. Now, Comey was fired at the recommendation of Rosenstein. Comey was a leaker, and he absconded with government documents when he left. His security clearance should be pulled. McCabe is under criminal investigation, the number two from the FBI. Never before in history, media, his security clearance should be pulled. Peter Strzok was just fired, the guy in charge of counterintelligence investigations for misconduct. His security should be pulled. James Clapper committed perjury. He lied to the American people and Senator Wyden and that committee long time ago. His security clearance should have been pulled. Bruce Orr, another one. Pulled. Yates, another one. Not because the president has a problem with Democrats or liberals. He has a problem with these people. And we haven't even gotten to the unmasking issue yet. So this is not a First Amendment issue. Meanwhile, when these people have security clearances, what the hell did they do with them? Well, let's take a look. The Russians interfered in our election, right? Well, who was president? Who was head of the CIA? Who was national security advisor? Who was the head of the FBI? All these people, with their security clearances, in positions of power, did nothing effective to stop the Russians from interfering in our election. They did nothing to stop China from stealing our technology. They did nothing to stop North Korea's nuclear program. And even worse, they awarded the Islamo... Hold it, Mark. The terrorist regime in Tehran with $150 billion, right? With $150 billion and provided them with a pathway to nuclear weapons. Good job, boys and girls in the Obama administration, with your security clearances. The fact that Obama appointed these people and gave them security clearances is not the obligation of this president to let them retain their security clearances. There is no constitutional issue. That's just nonsense. And again, one of them's a Republican, so that makes this all okay.
Mark, I'd take away all their clearances.
I'd take away all their clearances, too. But the fact of the matter is, we really need to focus in on the conduct of these individuals. Look at the phony media and the arguments they're making. This is like a dictatorship. We've never seen anything like this before. All these blabbermouths who know nothing. You're going to see Clapper on TV till you throw up on your loafers. You're going to see Comey, he had his book thing. You're going to see Brennan all over the place, all these phony victims and so forth and so on. Meanwhile, when they were in office, when they had their security clearances, when they had power, they didn't stop the Russians, they didn't stop the Red Chinese, they didn't stop the North Koreans, they funded the Iranians, and in fact, they are responsible for the greatest scandal in American history by interfering with our election and trying to undermine the Trump campaign.
And the Trump presidency. I think I'm going to remember, hold on, Mark, and throw up on my loafers. But more importantly, that's why we call you the Great One. Great commentary. Mark Levin, thank you. Don't forget, Mark Show, Life, Liberty, Levin, every Sunday night, 10 p.m.
Hi, Kevin.
I thought that was a caller there on iPhone, but it turned out not to be. So anyway, you didn't miss anything. Anyway, I don't think I could say it any better than Mark Levin. I mean, you have like the worst presidency ever, my opinion, Obama. And, of course, all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that the Democrats somehow don't like Russians, I mean, they've always liked Russians. Kennedy actually colluded with them on the first State of the Union address. When the Russian there were some Russian dignitaries that came in, they sat with the Democrats. I mean, we're supposed to all of a sudden believe that the Democrats have changed their ways, Oh, now all of a sudden, my gosh, yeah, they're so involved with with all things Russian. I mean, I'm getting sick of it. It's so freaking stupid. It really is ridiculous. I wouldn't worry about it too much because I understand that Mueller actually just He appointed Rocky J. Squirrel and Bullwinkle the Moose, and they're going to actually help him in his endeavor to go ahead and frame Trump for whatever, because they do have direct connections to Boris Badenoff and Natasha Nogudnik, and the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. I mean, you know, this has to come to an end. Mr. Mueller, will you please take your shit or get off the pot? Maybe that stuff too. Who knows what goes on there in those closed Democratic quarters, where all of a sudden the Democrats have realized that Russia is no good. I mean, I remember Obama kind of chiding and making fun of Romney, because Romney kept on mentioning the Russians. You go, what are you talking about, Russians? Come on, what are you living in? The Cold War is over. You know, just go ahead and make sure you tell Vlad that I'll have much more flexibility after the second election. This way I can give up more of our nuclear weapons and make us even a weaker country. All with security clearances. Pretty nuts. Anyway, I'm going to go to the phones. This is going to probably be, this should be really interesting. So let's go ahead and see if we can get Lane on, and let's go ahead and do that. Pick up. Hello?
Hi, this is Lainey. I'm not around to take your call.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Sound of the tone, and I'll call you back. Have a great day.
At the tone, please record.
Let me see if I can do this another way. You know, sometimes when you're dealing with a publicist, they kind of screw things up, and they don't give you the right info and stuff like that. So let me just see if I can do this. Now, that was on the mobile. I'll try it one more time. Let's try it one more time. I know she is expecting my phone call. I know she is. If I get another thing like this.
Hi, this is Lainey. I'm not around to take your call.
Lainey. Ah, gosh. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to like a commercial here, and we'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to see if I can straighten this out and get our guest on for us. You're listening to The Michael Blum Show. We'll be back momentarily.
At the Michael Blum Show, we talk about things you don't want to talk about. If in your own personal life you have an experience or an event or something that's changed you, we'd love to hear about it. Maybe get your story on air. Feel free to give us a call, 800-699-0980. Again, that's at 800-699-0980. Or feel free to email me, Michael@blumradio.com. That's Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, at blumradio, blumradio.com. And we will get in touch with you and put your story on the air.
This is Steve Kane with Dr. Jonathan Cook from JJ Dental. Jonathan, I was just blown away by the reviews that your patients left online.
Yeah, sure. My website and Yelp, Google Places, Facebook, you name it. There's plenty of places to go to find 5-star reviews and read what our patients are saying about us.
You heard Dr. Cook. Go online, read his reviews. You'll be blown away too. And then call for an appointment, 954-463-7262, or online at jjdentalpractice.com.
Hi, this is Michael Blum. Join me on Tuesday evenings from 8 to 10 p.m. for The Michael Blum Show, where we talk about the things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex. We talk about politics. We talk substance abuse and spirituality. So think, speak, and be heard. Call us at 800-699-0980. Join us on The Michael Blum Show.
this is Dr. Michael Blum. I just moved my practice down the block to my new office at JJ Dental, just 4 blocks south of my old office. I chose JJ Dental because it's a 5-star rated practice. That's why you should choose them too. Call 954-463-7262 and ask for an appointment with me, Dr. Blum, or any other of the fine dentists at JJ Dental, creating beautiful, healthy smiles that last a lifetime. Call 954-463-7262 and visit us online at jjdentalpractice.com. Hi, this is Michael Blum. If you'd like to be part of the Michael Blum Show, be a sponsor, call us at 840 or email me at michael@michaelblumshow.com.
Hi, how you doing, Lainey?
I'm doing good. You were calling myself.
Yeah, I know. Your publicist didn't give me any other number other than your cell, so that's the one I called up. But
okay. Oh my God.
But that's okay. No big deal.
Good. Thank God.
Yeah, no big deal. I went to a commercial.
At Michael Blum Show, we talk about things you don't want to talk about.
So I'm going to go ahead. We'll just go ahead and re-enter the show here, and we will be fine. Okay, you all set?
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's the only number I could come up with. So I attempted to email you, and I couldn't really get through that way either.
And I turned the sound off because I know I'm going on the air.
Right. That's what I would. I'd be doing the exact same thing. Well, anyway, folks.
Yeah.
Let me just go ahead and get back in here. Just give me a second, and then we'll start. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to The Michael Blum Show. Feel free to give us a call at 800-699-0980. Again, that's 800-699-0980. I have the pleasure of having on the phone with me Elaine Dalphin. Now, the name may not be familiar to you, but she's familiar to many, many people because she is one of the most expert dream interpreters that we have here in North America. And I say that because I know that Elaine lives up in Montreal, which is Europe for cheap folk. You just go up to Montreal. You don't really have to go ahead and get it. That's kind of how I look at it. If I want to experience Europe nowadays, I just go ahead and I go up to Canada somewhere. Montreal, Quebec, or any of those places, and you can kind of experience that. So how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you, Michael? So nice to talk to you.
I am doing really, really well. I had a couple of issues here with software, but everything seems to be working and flowing very, very nicely now. So, folks, I know I'm usually talking politics, but we're not going to... You're not an expert in DACA or the Dreamers, are you?
No, I'm not.
No, so this is...
I'm not.
Yeah, this is a completely different type of dream thing we're talking about, folks. Completely different. So, I'm always curious about this because... My first love of dreams and dream interpretation is very biblical. And
right.
It started with Joseph for me,
Right, there you go.
Right.
And so probably the most, one small correction I'll make is that I'm not a dream interpreter. I'm a dream analyst. And the difference is a dream interpreter, you tell the person your dream, and they tell you what it means. And a dream analyst, I listen to the dream, and I'm the girl that knows the right questions to ask the dreamer, and it's you who tells me what the dream is about.
That's good.
Because because at the first level, the dream is the conversation that you're having with yourself concerning a very specific current issue in your life that you are attempting to problem solve. And so when we go to sleep at night, we function so the same as we do when we wake up in the morning, how you prioritize your day. Who do I have to call? Who do I have to email? And when you go to sleep at night, even if you had 5, 6, 7,000 events happen to you in a day, your subconscious mind is going to prioritize the one thing that's bugging you the most. And all of your dreams tonight are going to be you testing out different possible solutions and reactions to a very specific current issue. And that's why I call it Have a Great Dream. Because All dreams are great. And that's the title of both my books, and it's also the title of my site, is also haveagreatdream.com.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, there is it's a 2-book set, I understand, Have a Great Dream. I imagine it's available. It's an Amazon thing?
Yeah, exactly. And you can get it online at Barnes & Noble as well.
Well, you know, I'm glad that you're telling me that I'm actually solving my problems in my sleep, because when I wake up, I seem like I don't do anything. You know, it's nothing.
Well,
I'm glad at least I'm active when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, and actually not only are you problem solving, but the great news that I'm here to tell everybody is that the solution to the problem that's bothering you appears in your unconscious, of course, before it gets to your conscious. So if you're a person who has good dream recall, and actually you don't even really need good dream recall, you can just sometimes remember one scene of a dream, and I'll give you a couple of examples of that. But the solution is right there. You want to hear? You seem like a cool kind of guy. I can give you a terrific example. That's a one-picture dream about a woman who dreamt that she had a piglet stuck to her breast.
Lovely. Okay, I hate when that happens.
She did. It's a real dream, and it's one of my favorites, actually. And so my first, I call them points of entry, because I teach people how to do it. And my point of entry on this was the action in the dream. And the first question I asked the dreamer was, you must have been running around freaking out, trying to get the piglet off your breast, because that's what I would imagine anybody would be doing. And she said, no, actually, I'm just looking at it. And so before you even know the dream or the dreamer, we already know that either the dream is reflecting the way that she reacted to something that hurt her, that she underreacted to a current situation, or the dream is, or she overreacted to the situation in her waking life, and the dream is providing a rehearsal about what it feels like when you stay still, when something's hurting you or somebody hurts your feelings and you don't lash out right away. Maybe that dream was giving her that exercise or that rehearsal. And so I asked her, what did you do today? Who did you go with? Because at the first level, the dream is always about something that you either thought about or something that happened to you yesterday. And so she she went shopping with her sister in downtown Montreal, and I asked her, using a symbols point of entry, I asked her for a couple of descriptions of her sister. What kind of person is she? Is she selfish, giving? Is she a happy-go-lucky person? Is she a serious girl? I asked questions like that, and nothing really fit. And then I asked her, and who else did you see? And one of the people that she mentioned was her ex-boyfriend. And I asked her, why don't you tell me very quickly, what are the first 2 or 3 things that come to your mind when you think about him? And the first thing that came out of her mouth was, he's such a dependent little pig.
Okay, there you go. That's kind of having someone analyze themselves for you. That's pretty good. Pretty good.
We found the piglet, and do I have more time to finish the story?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Okay, great. And so I asked her, and what did you talk about? And she said he was making a birthday party for himself, and he asked her to come to the party and cook the food. And I said, wow, that's so nice that you're close to your ex enough to go to his party and prepare the food. And she said, I don't want to go to the party. I don't want to prepare the food. I don't want to see this guy anymore. And I said, and did you tell him? Well, no, because my sister was there and he was there with friends, and I didn't want to really say anything. And I said, well, I guess you have something to get off your chest.
Yeah, sure. You got to empty that out. So is that the basis? If let's say she doesn't do anything about this, is that the basis of recurring dreams, or one of the ways to look at it?
Well, that's a very smart observation, because that is what happens, is that when you don't, like if she wouldn't have expressed herself, and it's very sophisticated, the subconscious that shows the fact that he was asking her to cook the food, and in the dream, the piglet is on the breast. She calls him dependent, and so again, it's appropriate that the piglet is on the breast, and she doesn't want to cook for him, and she's not saying anything. So the dream is trying to inspire her to push him off. And of course, as soon as she came out of the session, you know who the first person she called was. But when you haven't reached a solution to an issue, yes, your subconscious mind will create different but very similar scenarios, and sometimes it even repeats the dream over a period of weeks, until you get it. But it's also true to say that you could be dreaming about a similar subject. Like I remember many years ago, before I had been on TV, and I was much more accustomed to radio, and nobody sees you when you're on the radio. It's like very relaxing for me. But now I was invited to be on TV in New York. And so I had a dream one night that was about a ghost. And what did that mean in my database, in my personal database? A ghost means I'm scared. And later on, another night, I dreamt that I was standing on the abyss of a cliff. And what does that mean? It means I'm scared. And then I dreamt about my grade 5 teacher. And what does that mean? It also means I'm scared. So those are 3 different dreams over a short period of time that are all saying, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And also, a lot of my dreams during that period were taking place in a huge space. And even though the dreams were different, I was always in this huge space. And that, again, is a preparation and rehearsal, because by the time I got to New York and walked into this massive studio, I was very relaxed, because it was like, been there, done that. I had already spent like the last month having my dreams in this incredibly large space.
So that all worked out for you.
You see? I'm sorry?
I said that worked out for you. Then having the dream actually was like kind of like a precursor to get you relaxed to go ahead and do what you need to do.
Exactly. And the dreams are doing that for you, whether you remember them or you don't. You're getting dreaming is just thinking, and your unconscious mind is preparing you anyways for all kinds of events. And the most important thing that the unconscious mind is doing, in my humble opinion, is that when we're born, we come into the world whole. We have a plethora of possibilities and potential, I call it. We have the ability to be selfish, to be giving, to be shy, to be outgoing, to be a hero, to be a chicken. We have everything in us. And the people that bring us up teach us that it's more cool to be one way than another. And so we become what Frederick Perls called over-invested in some aspects of our personality and under-invested in other aspects. And what the dreams do is they give you the opportunity, and it's never by an accident who appears in your dream. Even when you don't know the face of the person, it's never an accident. It is not random. And I say that with 45 years of confidence behind me, that the dream allows you an opportunity to exercise parts of yourself that may not be appropriate for the specific situation that you're in. So, for example, if you were brought up, I was just looking at an example of this before we came on, that if you were brought up with siblings, you probably got the message from your parents that it's not okay to be selfish, because you hear things like, go share your toys with your brother, go look after your sister, and all the messages that you're getting are about being giving. They're not about being selfish. And as opposed to somebody who is an only child, they might get very relaxed about being selfish because they don't have to share their toys with anybody, and they don't have to share their parents' attention with anybody either. And the people that grow up with siblings who learn that it's not okay to be selfish, those are the people that might become over-exercised in saying yes. You know those people that can't say no?
Sure.
You ask them for something. So I heard a young man telling me in a dream that he was climbing up a ladder, and the ladder, the higher he goes, the more paper is all around the ladder. And on the top of the ladder is this guy who he used to go to school with, and encouraging him to climb up to keep climbing. And when I asked him for his associations to that particular person, which is why I wrote the books Have a Great Dream, by the way, because those dictionary books cannot answer the questions that I'm asking the dreamer. Because when I asked him for his associations to that person at the top of the ladder, he said he was probably the most selfish person that he ever met. And that dreamer was dreaming about someone who he associates in his database, somebody that he associates as being selfish, somebody that has no problem saying no. And the reason what triggered the dream is all the paper and all the work that's on that dreamer's desk, and that his friends were asking him not to work and come out to a movie with them. And he wasn't able to say, no, I'm going to stay here and work, because he just knows how to always say yes. And so he dreams about, Carl Jung would have called that man that was at the top of the ladder the dreamer's shadow. It's a part of yourself that's under-exercised. It's not like a shadowy, scary picture feeling, but sometimes it is. And there are certain dream workers that would invite you to get closer to the part of the dream that scares you the most, or that you dislike the most, because that's the aspect of your personality that you want to exercise.
That's pretty cool. You know, I wish that I remembered my dreams. I'd be able to talk to you about a lot more of the stuff, and you'd be able to analyze me and know how screwed up I really am. But I don't.
I bet you're not. All of us, you know what? All of us are screwed up. Everybody is working on something. Thank God. We're all working on something, and if you're working on something, it means you're still alive.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is you got to keep moving forward. I always love the story about I used to work in the Catskill Mountains when I was a teenager, and I found a horse that was obviously belonged to somewhere. And it was just in the middle of a road. So I got on top of it, and I gave it a little kick, and it started to trot down this road. And then it would stop at the grass every now and then and eat a little bit, and I'd pull it aside. And eventually it went up into some little windy road, and a little girl came running out saying, "Oh, my horse, thank God you found it, thank God you found it." She said, "Well, how'd you get him here?" And I said, I didn't do anything. I just let him follow the path. He just followed his own path.
There you go.
You know, and
I really, actually, I can't believe you're coming up with this stuff. It's, I was going to say, did you read my book today?
I wish I had time to read every book that comes across my desk, but no, I know some things about dreams. I've studied them. I don't have an intense background in it. And like I said to you, unfortunately,
but I love the concept, and I talk about this in the first book. That is, again, it's called Have a Great Dream, and the first book 1, is called The Overview, and in it I talk about how every person, I often have this discussion with clients who come to me that think that the guy they're going out with is like rejecting them in some way or something, and it turns out to be all about the rejection. Instead of, for me, real love is if you can look at and accept whoever the person is for exactly who they are today, with no anticipation of anybody changing, because we have absolutely zero control over changing anybody else. And thankfully, we have all the control of changing ourselves. And so if you realize and appreciate and respect that each of us is on our own path, and nobody is rejecting nobody's doing something to you, or someone's not rejecting you, it'd be better to look at the person for exactly who they are and respect the path and the learning that they are on. And then after you've done that, then you make a decision, is this the kind of person that I would like to be with? Because now there's no victim. Because now you're in the position of making a decision if this is a person that you want to be with, and it's no longer about feeling whether they want to be with you or not. And dream analysis keeps you on that road. It really does, because in dream analysis, you're always looking in about what it is that you can exercise, what part of myself that's sleeping or that's under-exercised can I start tapping into? Is it that I need to be more assertive? Is it that I need to be less assertive? You know, is it that I'm always saying yes and I want to learn to say no? You know, those kind of things. Is it that I'm always afraid and I want to exercise being less afraid? And so this way, you're always focused on what you can grow with, what you can grow inside yourself. And it's much more powerful than trying to change someone else, which is never going to happen.
Sure, that's impossible. You know, I'd like you to, if you don't mind, just give a little bit of your biography, your background, because it's interesting how you come to this. You know, I don't imagine you sitting in 5th grade somewhere as a little kid going, gee, I'm going to analyze dreams when I get older. It's kind of like not something that, you know, it's not something crosses people's minds like that. But you had some interesting stuff here. You've been doing this work, and also I'm just curious, what is your background that you feel gives you the expertise to do what you do?
Well, it was sort of like, I want to say to you that life happened to me. This is what happened to me, but I should say that as a little girl, because I've got incredible dream recall, and I always have, and when I was a little girl, I had a father that instead of saying, when I woke up with a nightmare, instead of saying to me, oh, go back to sleep, it was just a nightmare, my dad used to say, oh, you had a nightmare, tell me all about it. And I would tell him, and he would just, one of the things I remember him saying to me was when I was going back to sleep, he would say to me, now close your eyes and say to yourself, I'm going to have another nightmare. Bring it on. I'm going to have another one. So he was somebody that really captured my interest in dreams from a very young age. And he was, I don't think he knew it, but he was really doing the right thing, because the last thing you want to do is say, oh, it was just a dream, go back to sleep, you know. And so when I got married when I was 19, and I had my first of 4 daughters. Tina was born just after my 21st birthday, and she was born with Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And when I was 20, I wasn't so, I became depressed, of course, after I gave birth to Tina. And it wasn't so long after that I ended up in psychoanalysis with a brilliant Freudian analyst out of New York City who moved to Montreal. And so when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't very articulate about how I was feeling on a particular day, but I always arrived at the appointments with the shrink, always with a dream. And he did probably about 80% of my psychoanalysis happen through dream interpretation. So my initiation to Freud wasn't because I studied him at first. It was because I experienced him. And somebody at the university, I was in applied human sciences at Concordia here in Montreal, and one of my professors said to me, wow, if you liked Freud, you would love Frederick Perls. And so I went to the Gestalt Counseling and Training Center, and I earned my certificate in Gestalt Counseling. And then when I was coming up on 40, I thought, what about Alfred Adler? What did he think? And I went to the Alfred Adler Institute and studied with another New Yorker, Dr. Leo Gold, and I learned Adlerian principles to dream analysis. And then I became a member of the CGU Society. So I've been studying dreams for 45 years, and they are not... Dream analysis is not therapy, but it sure is therapeutic.
That's an interesting way to put it. You know, it's funny. I thought you would certainly be mentioning Jung in there, in that mix of people, as someone who you may have studied in terms of dreams. But wow, that's quite a background. That's really amazing. It really is.
Yeah, and I'm that kind of personality. I'm not a halfway kind of woman. When I get interested in something, I'm like, I'm intense. What can I say?
No, I understand. I understand because people ask.
And in my my second book, like the book number 2, I actually wrote 16 years ago, and it's and the book 1, which I wrote very recently, is happened because I learned from my 25-year-old daughter, the youngest. I've learned how these days, unless you're really interested in a subject, you don't want to sit down and read 350 pages about how to do it. You want to know, how do I do it now? And so I wrote this book 1 is like 120 pages, and I'm including the pictures.
Wow. Okay.
And it just tells you the answer to how do you know why you had that dream last night. And I do also discuss how the solutions appear in the dreams, but it's just interesting because in the bigger book, I took the same 4, 5, 6 dreams that run throughout the book, and I look at the same dream from a different perspective, from a Freudian, a Jungian, a Gestalt, and an Adlerian perspective. As we go deeper into the book, you're still reading about the same dreams, but now you're learning what prize do you get if you do Freud. I always say that to my husband, Andy, because he's a style of guy. He just wants to know why he was flying on a cow last night. And he doesn't want to know how that, he doesn't want to discuss with me how that impacts his early relationship that he had with his mother. It's like, Lainey, I just want to know why I was flying on a cow and I have to go to work.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the overview for people like Andy. They just want to know how to do it.
Sure. No, that's great. That's great, because that is how people are, particularly today. Makes me want to go ahead and read the books. Again, folks, it's Have a Great Dream, book number 1 and 2. 2 is more detailed, and number 1 is the one that we just described here. There are certain dreams that seem to be, I don't know what the word would be, not popular really, but seem to be ingrained in human beings. And I was curious if I could ask you a couple of those and just tell me what you think. Okay?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. The first one is I'm a dentist by trade. And so the first one is that you mash your own teeth out of your head, or somehow your teeth get loose and fall out, but there's some tooth-related issue.
I love that. I love that dream. And so because the dream, you can have a dream about your teeth falling out, when you're 7 years old because you want to say something to your parent that you're not allowed to say. And so you dream that your teeth are falling out because you got to spit it out, literally. You have something that you're holding in that you need to let out. And then the same person can have the dream about teeth falling out many years later, and it'll mean something completely different. And so I just want to preface my answer to you with that it depends on the person and the situation that they're happening for them that particular week. So because all of us in the human race, when we're around 6 or 7 years old, we all lose our teeth. And it's something that's inevitable, and it's also something that we have absolutely no control about. And so just a couple of weeks ago, I had a woman come to me having recurring dreams about her teeth falling out, and it turned out to be about the fact that somewhere inside her, she knew, because we know things that we just don't want to look at, and that's a function of being welcome to the human race, I call it, because that's what we do, is we lie, we avoid, and we sleep. And it's part of the function of being a human. And she knew that her boyfriend was about to break off with her. She could feel it, she could smell it, but she was not acknowledging it. And so for her, the teeth falling out was a metaphor for something that was inevitable, and something that she had absolutely no control over. And so she used that metaphor beautifully, where someone else might use it because they have something to say to somebody that they're holding in. And a third person might dream that their teeth are falling out because they're going through some kind of transition. Because when our teeth fall out, it is a transition, right, to growing a little bit older. And so you might have that dream when you're turning 40 or 50 or 60, when you're going through some kind of transition. Or maybe your teeth are falling out because you're concerned, you said something that you embarrassed yourself, and maybe you're worried about how you look. And that would link you, as sophisticated as any computer, I promise you, that feeling about feeling exposed and worried about how you look might be how you felt when you were 7 and your 2 front teeth fell out. And maybe you were worried about how you look.
I love the fact that that all of your analysis really depends on the person, their background, what's going on in their lives. It's not like it's not like a dictionary, where you look up the dream. And this is it, and this is what happened, and this is why. There's a lot more involved to it. You have to know the person, the situation, and all sorts of other good things.
Of course, and when when we're born, every single memory and association that you have ever had since you're born is just sitting there in your unconscious mind. It's the most incredible database. And so, are you married, by the way?
Yes, I am. I actually just celebrated my 36th wedding anniversary.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that so nice? Congratulations to you.
Yeah, it's great.
And so your wife, in your unconscious mind, if you want to say something to yourself about her when you're sleeping, I'm just talking to you pure language, nothing else. I'm talking about learning how to speak the language of the metaphor. And if you want to say something to yourself concerning something that has to do with your wife, you could choose. They're all interchangeable. You can choose any girlfriend that you've ever had. And they are all interchangeable with specifically how your wife made you feel yesterday in that discussion. And if your wife made you feel a similar way to the way your girlfriend when you were 20 made you feel, then you might dream about that girlfriend, but really the story is about your wife.
That's interesting, and that would certainly alleviate some of the fears my wife might have. But she doesn't have any. I'm a pretty loyal guy, and actually I'm not a pretty loyal guy. I am a loyal guy. And
oh, yeah, but that's so funny because I know a guy who dreamt that his wife, who he was married to for 35 years, cheated on him. And when we analyzed the dream, we discovered that actually it was a client that he had had for 35 years that bought some. He was selling children's wear, and that client that he thought was so faithful to him, he found out put in an order to a competitor.
Ah, okay.
And he dreamt that his wife was cheating on him, and it wasn't about the wife at all. It was just about a connection with somebody for over 30 years and feeling betrayed.
That's amazing. That's great. That's really great. Now, I know that...
Well, what about, I just want to give you one other fast one. Like, what about the woman who dreamt that she was having hot sex with some guy that she said she would never in a million years get into bed with? And she was having, it was like great. It was like great sex. And she said, like, what the heck is that? And it turned out to be about the fact that she doesn't like boats. She, would never want to go on a boat. Mm-hmm. And her husband, without telling her, went and bought a boat. And she had just spent the weekend on the boat, and she loved it. She absolutely loved the experience. So she dreams that she's having sex with somebody who she never thought she would get into bed with in a million years, and yet in the dream she had such a good time, and it was a mirror about the boating experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, I wish I could remember dreams, and when I do, my dreams kind of are kind of dopey in a way. It could be like I'm taking my family to the airport. We're going to get on a plane, and in the back seat, along with my family, is George Costanza from Seinfeld. I
love it.
Just someone that has absolutely nothing to do with anything or anywhere, and just happens to kind of surface in the dream for some reason. So
right. Well, yeah, but it's never random, and it's because we're so sophisticated, and it's always quite precise. And did that really happen to you, by the way, that you were driving your family to the airport and George Costanza was in the back of the car?
Only in my dream. Yeah, that was just one. And every now and then I'll get a disjointed dream like that. It's like if I were generically explaining it, I'd say it's like something that doesn't belong. All of a sudden is there.
Right, but they always make perfect sense when you understand them. Like I know actually a radio guy who was dreaming that he was sitting in his mother's house watching CNN, and they were doing a story on a giraffe that was missing from the local zoo, and the giraffe it didn't have skin. It was like a computer-generated giraffe. That's the way he described it. And then he goes into to the washroom to pee, and when he opens up the door, the giraffe is in the tub in his mother's house. So he closes the door very carefully, and he goes straight to the phone to dial 911 to tell them that he found the giraffe. And in the next scene, this reporter from CNN is sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by books, and she's looking up one thing in one book and then putting it down and looking something else in another. And she's wearing a tracksuit, and he says she's not very attractive. And so I'll just tell you what the dream was about so you'll get it. The day before he had the dream, his wife had an ultrasound because they were expecting their first baby. And that's why it's a computer-generated giraffe, because his wife had an ultrasound, so he was looking at it. Was kind of like an X-ray thing, mm-hmm. And that's why you have the giraffe standing in the tub of water, right? Because the baby is in the water,
sure,
right? And at the end of the dream, his wife's cousin suddenly appears out of nowhere, walking out of the bathroom and saying hello to everybody. And so, in other words, some family member that's connected to the wife. Notice how he didn't pick his own cousin. He picked his wife's cousin because some family member that's connected to the wife suddenly appears in the house, which is exactly what's going to happen with the baby. Somebody who's connected to the wife is going to
all of a sudden be there.
The house.
That's right. And there they are.
Exactly, and then it's funny because he and his wife had been wearing a lot of tracksuits, and as she was getting bigger into the pregnancy, she started wearing a lot of tracksuits, and she was also constantly looking up in books about the first trimester, and then she'd see something there and look up something about the third trimester in another book, and that's why the CNN reporter has all these books around her, and she's looking things up everywhere. And he even called me, actually, the next day to say that he'd even thought of other intelligent connections, like that the neck is cervical, and so is the cervix, like that. The same word applies to both, you see? Mm-hmm. How it works. So it's not random, because the giraffe dream looked like a crazy dream, and if you'd like to know what the solution to that issue, because the solutions appear in the dream, and when the man found the giraffe in the bathroom there, what did he do? He went straight to the phone to call for help. He went and called 911. And the dream was triggered because the ultrasound got him very nervous about having a baby and what's he going to do with this baby. And he was nervous about her giving birth and him bringing a baby home. And the solution to the issue is the fact that he has the dream. He stages the dream in his mom's house, and where he can always go and call. He can call his mom. He can call his mother-in-law, and there's help around. He doesn't.
Sure.
So he's practicing asking for help in the dream.
That's interesting. Very interesting. There are some other primordial dreams I'd like to just see if we can go through, because I know that people have experienced them. The other one would be being naked. And usually, and I used to have that dream when I was a kid, when I was going through like elementary school and junior high school. And the interesting thing about it, for me, usually is despite the fact that I'm naked, no one notices, no one seems to care, and there is no acknowledgement or suggestion or attempt to change anything. It's just that I happen not to have my clothing on.
And, Sigmund Freud, because, again, I'm going to give you several reasons why that might happen to a person, but the one that I don't know why, but I just love it. One of the things that Sigmund Freud proposed is that you're having a memory of childhood when you were walking around naked and nobody cared.
That's
I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Don't you love that concept? I just love it. It's like there's no judgment. You can just walk around and be who you really, really are. But one of the points of entry that I teach in the books is the feelings in the dream. And so when you have a dream like that, you would want to ask yourself, how am I feeling in the dream? And if the answer comes back, well, I'm feeling exposed and embarrassed, then you come outside the dream and you ask the dreamer, or you ask yourself, what do you think is going on this week in your life that you're feeling exposed? And if you say, oh, I was feeling really embarrassed, then that's the question. What do you think is happening this week that's making you feel embarrassed? Or maybe you're getting undressed because you finally told somebody what you really think. And then it's very normal to dream that you're naked, especially and when you realize that you actually came out with what you really thought, and maybe the sky didn't fall in, then that would be a circumstance where you might have a dream that you're naked and nobody cares because the sky didn't fall in.
That's interesting. Speaking of falling in, that's another dream that I don't know if it's a dream or a reflex, where all of a sudden you feel like you're falling and you wake up.
Right, and that's sometimes that's your muscles, literally, like if it happens when you're just falling asleep, it's your muscles just starting to relax. But I had it's so funny because I was just a few minutes ago talking about when I went to New York to do my first television appearance, and one of the news anchors there, she had a dream that she was falling and falling, and that she actually hit the ground in the dream. She gets up and walks away. And for her, it was a comment about how when things are not going well for her, she's the kind of personality that knows how to pick herself up and carry on. You know, and so it depends, you know, and then there's other people that they dream they're falling and all of a sudden it turns into flying. And what's that about? Sometimes when you think that you're in some kind of trouble and then it didn't turn out that way, or maybe you're a kind of person who knows how to navigate when you're in trouble. And maybe you know how to keep yourself up. And so that dream is kind of an expression like falling turning into flying, you know?
That's interesting because you just brought up something.
Maybe
you just brought up something that I haven't. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and maybe the falling dream, maybe it's to inspire you to speak up about something that you're not talking about during the day, that you're feeling uncomfortable about.
I think that out of what you've said, the one I like the best is your muscles are just starting to relax, and maybe you're not really quite in sleep, and that relaxation kind of gives you a jolt. But you brought up flying, and you know, it's odd because that was a recurring dream that I had when I was a child, and it was a very joyous type of a dream. It wasn't anything strange. I would just be walking down the block that I lived in Brooklyn, except I could like do leaps and bounds, you know? I mean, I could jump over the trees and just really just float to where I needed to be. And I don't remember it as being frightening at all, but I had completely forgotten that until you just mentioned it. That's interesting.
Well, that's a wonderfully healthy dream, especially when we're children. We don't have the same amount of control of our surroundings as we do when we're adults, because if you don't like something that's going on in the room as an adult, you can pick up and walk out. Or you can use your voice and say, I don't like what's going on here. And when we're children, most of us don't really have that kind of freedom. But you need it. You need the freedom. And so we'll get dreams like that about flying. It's wonderful. And I just love what you said, that you were able to maneuver yourself. And so you were obviously building a great self-confidence interior, inside, Michael. Like, you know, giving yourself the freedom about being away from whatever may have happened during the day with a teacher or a parent, that, you know, where you didn't have that freedom to fly, and here you gave it to yourself in the night. And not only did you give it to yourself, but you're also describing that you were able to land wherever you wanted, however you wanted, which is amazing. That's great.
Yeah, I remember it being exhilarating kind of a dream, which is something I like I said, I really usually don't remember my dreams. But I did, I guess back then when I was a kid, I did. Another dream that I know people have all the time, I do, and I've had this one, is that you need to do something. It could be something just very simple. I need to go to the airport, okay? And yet no matter how much you try, and no matter what it is that you can do, and no matter what is happening, for some reason you cannot get to fruition on that. Yeah, I mean, for some reason you can't get into the car, and you know, and you're worried, and you're going, gee, we got to get there in a half an hour, and for some reason you're not in the car, you're not doing anything, and it just keeps on just going and going.
It's funny, because I'm going to give you another dream that I heard not long ago from a client that is the same dream as what you just said, and yet it's got different pictures, because she was dreaming that the seat that she was sitting in was on fire. And it wasn't putting her on fire, but the seat was on fire, and it was pushing her to get up and get out, right? And what you're describing what her dream was more of a solution to an encouragement or literally a boot, like she was getting booted out of the chair. And what you're describing is a very similar kind of thing when you're trying to get somewhere in your life and you're just having real difficulty getting there. And that difficulty getting there could be about a career. It could be inside a relationship that you're trying to get to a certain place and you're having trouble getting there. Or maybe it's all that work that's on your desk that you're procrastinating about. And those are different things. Like her dream with the fire in the seat was because her unconscious mind was sick and tired of her procrastinating, and so her healthy self gave her a dream scenario that forced her to get up and out.
So that's pretty much get off your butt and actually do something is the interpretation for most of that. Exactly. And the dreams really do give you that rehearsal. And what we do is we rehearse in our sleep. And when you feel comfortable enough, when you've exercised a certain aspect of yourself enough, you take it out into waking life. And then so that's happening for you whether you're remembering your dreams or you're not, by the way. Mm-hmm. You're still getting those exercises. It's just that you're going to get it faster if you know how to, if you have good dream recall and if you know how to analyze the dream. Again,
how do you like? What about the guy? What about the guy who was dreaming about watermelon rind down the drain in the sink, and he's feeling in the watermelon rind, looking for a key, and he had that dream because he was feeling in the pits.
Very good.
Love it.
See, what other dreams are kind of common? Like, I knew someone that used to complain to me that when she was a child, more than as an adult, that she was being chased by a witch.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And that's the answer to your question is the same that I was saying just a few minutes ago, is that your feelings have to go somewhere. It's the same thing as if you have to pee. I mean, you can hold it in, and at a certain point, you have to pee. And that's the same thing about fear or about feelings. You can hold it in, and at a certain point we are self-regulating organisms. And if it's not coming out during the day, I promise you it's going to come out at night. And because children often don't express themselves or maybe always feel safe enough to express themselves, that's what brings on the nightmare. The nightmare is the self-regulating function of your underreaction. So whatever your underreaction during the day to a situation is, the dream is going to overreact. And it does two things. It creates a balance, first of all, a physiological balance, and also it encourages you to talk about it because that young girl, obviously told you the dream, that she was dreaming that she was being chased by a witch, which is great, because now she took it out of her insides and brought it outside to waking life, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a discussion with somebody about it, and you are now, it's called brainstorming. Once you bring the dream outside into waking life and you start talking about it with somebody else, now you're going to start getting opinions. And opinions are fantastic because we learn from each other all the time.
Are you a very, consider yourself to be a very spiritual person?
I am a spiritual person, but I don't use the spirituality in my work. So, for example, when I started doing a lot of traveling because of the books, and one night I was dreaming about my father, my late father. And what does that mean? To me, he represents that male part of my personality. That's the part of me, the business side, that knows how to get on the plane, go away from Andy and the kids and the grandchildren, and just go do my Laney thing about the books. I need to tap into that male business side of myself that is represented by my dad. But how do you, so he comes to me in the dream, like the night before I'm about to go on a business trip, to help me not be my mother, the nurturing mother, grandmother, wifely side of myself. I'm not going to dream about that when I'm about to go on a business trip. I dreamt about my dad, but how do you and I know that it wasn't also really my dad visiting me? We don't know.
You don't. And I remember studying a little bit of Kabbalistic dream interpretation. And they're very, 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 very cautious about a lot of things. First of all, they don't want anyone to interpret your dreams. They say you should never go to someone to interpret your dreams. Like you said, you're analyzing. That's different. But someone should never really just out and out tell you what your dream is about.
I agree.
Unless you really trust them, you really know what their backgrounds are, because basically they can affect the outcome of your life to some extent based on their opinion of what they think is going on in your dream state.
But even if you know somebody really well, I mean, I've been with Andy for 30 years. I know him very well, but I still cannot propose to know what he is actually feeling, what it feels like to actually feel like him. And I need to respect that, because each of us are really unique, and so that's why you cannot tell somebody else what their dream is about or what they should do about a situation. You can certainly offer opinions, and you can say what you would do if you were in that situation, but I happen to agree with that aspect of Kabbalah. I do, because you want to have the greatest respect for the space of the dreamer, and that each of us life experience is so unique. Like, for example, Michael, why don't you tell me what comes to your mind when you think about a horse?
Mr. Ed.
I love it, Mr. Ed. And did you like him?
I love Mr. Ed. I thought he was wonderful. Didn't know him personally, but I did enjoy him. Yeah, I liked the show as well.
And Mr. Ed was doing something that we wouldn't normally expect.
You bet.
It fits with your... Mr. Ed perfectly fits with your flying dream, by the way. You know, just that doing something that you don't expect, and yet you're able to accomplish it. And I just love your associations. You have a certain amount of confidence, my dear, and I don't even know you, but I already know. So my associations with my associations with a horse are that I'm not really feeling secure, or something that I used to love. I don't really care for anymore, because I used to love to go horseback riding when I was a kid until I was 10, and I used to go to camp in upstate New York, and they put me on a horse, and whoever it was didn't tighten up the saddle well enough, and while we were riding, already on the trail cantering, the saddle started slipping, and I was slowly but surely going until I was at a 90-degree angle with the horse. I was like hanging off the side of the horse. So I might dream about a horse if some situation that I liked or that I felt secure in at the beginning, and then I didn't end up feeling my ground, literally. And I never got on a horse again, by the way. So
sure, that's understandable.
So I would be looking for some situation this week, or some person. So I'd already know what I'm looking for if I dream about a horse. Like, what situation did I think I was okay in, but I'm not really feeling okay in now. I'm not satisfied. So something changed about the way it used to be. And if you dream about a horse, it's about doing something or somebody doing something that you would never expect, achieving something that doesn't seem like the norm.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And here I just thought I liked Mr. Ed, but no, that is very interesting. Now, the Kabbalists also they also say that in your dreams are actually messages from the other side, if you will, from other aspects of the spirituality and from different areas that we can't readily access. And one of the things I remember them telling us is that a dream that really has a lot of meaning for you is one that should really be scaring the crap out of you, but yet it doesn't. Your body's very calm about it. And they say that those are actually messages to help you through your life. And the reverse of that, they said, is that the dark side can get into your head in your dreams when you're in that kind of twilight state where you're not really up yet and you're not really asleep. And they say most of what you get or you have in terms of dreams at that particular time of the night are worthless. They're just really not there to help you at all. They're there to frighten you or get you to do things that you ought not be able to do. So I'm curious if there's... Right,
and I look at dreams from, as you can tell, from a problem-solving perspective. And in my experience, the reason I call everything "Have a Great Dream" is because I think that all dreams are great. Dreams are great, even when they're scary. They're scary because there's a self-regulation happening to something that you're not looking after in your waking life, and your unconscious, your healthy unconscious, is screaming at you, literally. Or I have one of my YouTube videos has I describe a plastic bat. Your unconscious is hitting you with a plastic bat over the head, saying hello. And so that the nightmares are a good and positive thing. They're successfully trying to get in touch with you for something that you're not paying attention to during the day.
That's, again, interesting. This is such an interesting subject. You see how this is? We've been talking over an hour. It kind of flows very, very quickly. And this is the beauty of podcasts. I have no time concern. I can talk to you for as long as I want about whatever we want. If I want to get a little bit lurid with my choice of words, no one's going to come from the studio and call me up, and which has happened many times in the past with me. That's basically why I'm not on terrestrial radio at this point, because I always like to talk about things that most people don't want to talk about. And those are the things I think most people should really be talking about. And this is one of them. This is one of those things.
Right, and now you're giving yourself that freedom.
Yeah, so that's it's really good. I had a really, really good time speaking with you. And I want to thank you for joining me this evening. And again, folks, we've been talking about dreams. And I want you to go ahead and get this book. It's by Lane Dalfen, Dalfen, and it's called Have a Great Dream. There's book number 1, book number 2, and you can really get into this.
My site is also haveagreatdream.com.
That's pretty simple too, folks. It's haveagreatdream.com. Again, I want to thank you for joining me. Maybe we could do this again in the future at some point in time.
I would love that, Michael. Thank you so much.
All right, excellent. And if you'd like, once I edit this down, I can send you a copy of the broadcast, if you'd like.
I would love that.
Excellent. Very, very good. All right, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Folks, you've been listening to me talk for about an hour and a half nonstop here. I'm going to take Actually, I'm going to sign off, I think, for the evening because it is getting rather late, and that was really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that a lot. So, as I'm tempted to say all the time, when I deal with this show, that basically life has many, many aspects to it, and life basically everything in your life is possible. Everything is possible. Fewer things are probable, but one thing is for certain, and that's that you're alive. So go out and live your life to its fullest, because tomorrow is promised to nobody. Take care, and we'll speak to you.